My name is Maya. I'm 33. And today, I signed a $2.3 million contract that my family will never know about. My hands were shaking. Not from excitement. Not from nerves about signing the biggest contract of my career. They were shaking because of the text message I'd just received from my mother. I stared at the words on my phone screen. Your brother's engagement party is tonight. Don't embarrass us by talking about your little computer thing. Nobody cares. My little computer thing. I looked down at the document in front of me. A $2.3 million consulting contract. 3 years. A Fortune 500 company. My name in bold letters at the bottom, right above the signature line where I'd just signed my full legal name, Maya Christine Foster. The CEO had shaken my hand 10 minutes ago. He'd called me a pioneer in the field. He'd said I was one of 3 people chosen from over 200 applicants worldwide. He'd told me they were honored to work with me. And my mother had just called it my little computer thing. I sat alone in the glass-walled conference room on the 42nd floor. The city stretched out beneath me, glittering in the late afternoon sun. I should have been celebrating. I should have been calling everyone I knew, posting on social media, going out for champagne. Instead, I felt the familiar knot tightening in my stomach. That old, worn feeling of being invisible, of not mattering. I scrolled up in the family group chat. I'd sent a message 3 days ago. I have something huge happening Saturday afternoon. Can we move the party to Sunday? I really want to be there. And I have something to celebrate too. My mother's response had been immediate. The venue is booked. Can't your thing wait? This is Derek's night. My father had added, Maya, you always have something going on with work. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event for your brother. Be a team player. Derek hadn't responded at all. I'd tried to explain. I'd hinted at the importance of this meeting. I'd practically begged. Nothing changed. So I'd made the meeting. I'd signed the contract. And now I was expected to rush across town to celebrate my brother's engagement to a woman I'd met exactly twice. I closed my eyes and suddenly I was 12 years old again, sitting at the kitchen table with my parents crowded around me. I'd spent 3 weeks teaching myself HTML from a library book. I'd built my first website, a simple page about space exploration with facts I'd researched and images I'd carefully formatted. I'd been so proud, so excited to show them. My father had glanced at the screen for maybe 5 seconds. That's nice, sweetie, he'd said, but when are you going to do something real? Then he'd turned away to watch my brother's soccer practice video. For the 3rd time that day. I opened my eyes. The conference room was empty except for me. Through the glass walls, I could see people moving through the office, celebrating the end of the workday. Normal people with normal families who would be proud of them. My phone buzzed. The family group chat was exploding with photos. My mother had posted a picture of the restaurant's private dining room, already decorated. My father had sent a selfie with Derek, both of them grinning. Not one person had asked how my meeting went. I stood up, gathering my things. The contract was in a leather folder they'd given me, embossed with the company logo. It felt heavy in my hands, heavy with promise, heavy with years of work that had led to this moment, and not a single member of my family knew or cared. I walked to my car in the parking garage, my heels clicking on the concrete. I sat behind the wheel and stared at the contract one more time. Then I looked at my phone, at the endless stream of messages about Derek's party. Something shifted inside me. Something that had been bending for years finally straightened. I would go to the party. I would put on a smile. I would congratulate my brother. But this time, I wouldn't be silent. This time, I had proof. See, proof that I wasn't the family failure they'd always treated me as. Proof that my dreams weren't just hobbies. Proof that while they'd been dismissing me for 3 decades, I'd been building something extraordinary. I started the car and pulled out of the parking garage, heading toward the restaurant, toward my family, toward a moment that would change everything, because I was done being invisible. I wasn't always invisible. There was a time, brief and beautiful, when I was seen. When I was the only child, the center of my parents' world. I remember it in fragments, my mother reading to me before bed, my father teaching me to ride a bike, both of them sitting in the front row at my kindergarten play. I was 7 when everything changed. My parents hadn't planned on having another child. My mother was 41, my father 43. And they'd assumed I would be their only one. But then Derek came along. A surprise, a miracle, a late-life blessing. I remember the day they brought him home from the hospital. My mother, Linda, held him like he was made of glass. My father, Robert, couldn't stop staring at him with this expression of wonder. They'd never looked at me like that. At least, not that I could remember. "Maya, come meet your baby brother," my mother had said, her voice soft with emotion. I'd peered into the bundle of blankets and seen this tiny, red-faced creature. I'd felt a surge of love so powerful it surprised me. He was mine too. My little brother. But he wasn't mine, he was theirs. Completely, utterly theirs. The shift happened gradually, then all at once. My mother stopped reading to me at bedtime because she was too tired from night feedings. My father stopped playing catch in the backyard because Derek needed constant attention. My straight-A report card started getting pinned to the fridge without comment, while Derek's first steps were videotaped from 6 different angles. I was a quiet child by nature, curious, creative, happiest when I was building things or drawing elaborate designs. I'd spend hours in my room, constructing cities out of cardboard boxes or sketching floor plans for imaginary houses. My parents called it Maya's alone time and seemed relieved that I didn't need much from them, because Derek needed everything. As he grew, he became everything they'd apparently wanted: charming, social, athletic. The kind of kid who made friends easily, who scored goals in soccer and got invited to every birthday party. He was the star of every family gathering, entertaining relatives with his jokes and stories while I sat quietly in the corner. I didn't resent him. Not really. He was my little brother, and I loved him. But I resented what he represented. Proof that I was lacking something essential, something that made a child worth celebrating. I found my escape in technology. When I was 11, my school was throwing out old computers, and my science teacher let me take one home. It was ancient even then, running on Windows 95. But to me, it was magic. I borrowed books from the library, thick, complicated manuals about programming and web design, and taught myself to code. I remember the night I finished my first real project. I'd created a simple game where you had to solve math problems to make a spaceship move through an asteroid field. It had taken me 3 weeks, dozens of failed attempts, and more frustration than I'd ever felt. But it worked. I was so proud. I felt like I'd discovered something important about myself, that I could create things, real things, things that existed in the world. I brought my laptop downstairs on a Saturday morning. My parents were in the living room. Derek, now 10 years old, was showing my father videos from his soccer game. "Mom, Dad," I said, my voice trembling with excitement. "I made something. A game. Can I show you?" My father glanced up from Derek's phone. "Sure, sweetie. In a minute." I waited. They watched 3 more videos of Derek scoring goals, of Derek high-fiving his teammates, of Derek receiving a participation trophy. Finally, my father looked at me. "Okay, what did you want to show us?" I opened my laptop, hands shaking slightly. I explained what I'd done, how the game worked, how long it had taken me to figure out the code. My father watched for maybe 30 seconds. "That's nice," he said. Then he turned back to Derek. Show your sister that goal you scored in the third quarter. The one where you. But Dad? I interrupted, something desperate rising in my chest. Don't you think this is cool? I taught myself how to do this. From books. I. Maya, it's very nice, my mother said, not looking up from her phone. You're so smart. We're proud of you. But they weren't. Not really. They were relieved that I was self-sufficient, that I didn't need them to manage my activities or drive me to practice or show up at competitions. Because Derek needed all of that. The pattern solidified through our teenage years. Derek brought home a report card with 3 B-minuses, 2 C's, and 1 D. My parents took him out for ice cream to celebrate his effort. He's doing his best, my mother said, and he's so well-rounded. Grades aren't everything. I brought home straight A's and an invitation to the state science fair. My father glanced at my report card, nodded, and said, "Good job, Maya. Very responsible." Then he turned to Derek and spent an hour helping him plan his strategy for his upcoming baseball game. When Derek turned 16, my parents threw him a huge birthday party. They bought him a used Honda Civic, midnight blue, with a bow on top. Derek screamed and jumped around and hugged them while all his friends cheered. When I turned 16, we had a small family dinner at an Italian restaurant. No party, no car. When I asked about getting a vehicle, my father said, "We can't afford another car right now, Maya. Besides, the bus system is perfectly good. You're responsible enough to handle it." I took the bus. I was responsible. I always was. I never complained. I never threw tantrums or demanded attention. I internalized the message they were sending me, loud and clear. My worth was measured by how little trouble I caused, how self-sufficient I could be, how easily I could be overlooked. I became the helper, the reliable one, the daughter who didn't need parenting, and Derek became the star, the beloved son, the child who mattered. I told myself it didn't hurt. I told myself I was fine, that I was above needing their approval. I threw myself into my studies, into my coding projects, into building a future that didn't depend on their attention. But late at night, lying in bed, I wondered what was wrong with me. Why wasn't I enough? Why couldn't my achievements matter even a little? I never found an answer. I just learned to live with the question. High school should have been my time to shine. I won awards, earned scholarships, built things that actually mattered. But somehow, I remained invisible. When I was 16, I entered a regional technology competition. I'd created an app that helped elderly people navigate their medication schedules, complete with reminders, interaction warnings, and an easy interface designed for people with limited tech experience. I'd spent 6 months on it, testing it with residents at a local nursing home, refining every detail. I won first place out of 83 entries. The award ceremony was on a Thursday evening at the university downtown. I'd told my parents about it weeks in advance. They'd promised to come. They did come. And they sat in the auditorium as I walked across the stage to accept my trophy and the scholarship check for $2,000. I looked out into the audience, found their faces, and smiled. They smiled back. My mother even took a photo. Then, halfway through the reception afterward, my father checked his phone. "We need to go," he said abruptly. "Derek has a baseball game." "But the reception just started," I said. "There are people I want you to meet. The judges and—" "Maya, we've been here almost 2 hours," my mother said, already gathering her purse. "Derek's game is important. It's the semifinals." "His team is in last place," I said quietly. My father's expression hardened. "That's not the point. He's counting on us to be there." They left. I stood in the university reception hall, holding my trophy, watching them walk away. One of the judges came over to congratulate me, and I had to explain that my parents had another commitment. The trophy sat on my dresser for 3 years. It was never displayed in the family achievement cabinet in our living room, the one filled with Derek's participation medals, his fifth-place ribbons, his certificate for Most Improved Player from a summer basketball camp. College applications revealed the divide even more starkly. I'd worked my entire high school career for this moment. Perfect grades, advanced placement classes, volunteer work, coding competitions. I applied to 10 schools and got into 9. The best offer came from the state university, a full academic scholarship covering tuition, room, and board for 4 years. I was ecstatic. I came downstairs waving the acceptance letter, ready to celebrate. My mother read it quickly. "Oh, that's wonderful, honey," she said. "That's one less tuition to worry about. That's one less tuition to worry about. Not, 'We're so proud of you.' Not, 'You've worked so hard for this.' Just relief that I wouldn't cost them money." My father patted my shoulder. "Good job, Maya. Very responsible choice. Staying in state." That was it. That was my celebration. 6 months later, Derek barely graduated high school. His GPA was 2.3. He'd failed 2 classes and had to do summer school to get enough credits. He had no scholarships, no special achievements, no plan. But he had a dream. He wanted to go to a private liberal arts college 4 hours away where he could find himself and explore his interests. The tuition was $38,000 a year. My parents took out a loan, $40,000 in debt, just for his first year. "Derek needs this," my mother explained to me when I asked if they were sure they could afford it. "He's still figuring out who he is. Not everyone is like you, Maya. Some people need more support." I went to state school. Derek went to his expensive private college. I called home every Sunday during my freshman year. The conversations followed a pattern. "How are your classes?" "Really good. I'm taking advanced algorithms and—" "That's great, honey. Listen, Derek just got cast in a play. Let me tell you about it." 5 minutes on me. 30 minutes on Derek. I stopped calling every week. I cut it to every other week, then once a month. They didn't seem to notice. I threw myself into college. I joined the computer science club, took on freelance web design projects, built a portfolio that caught the attention of several tech companies. I earned internship offers from 3 different firms. My parents' response: "That's nice. Make sure you're getting enough sleep." Derek changed his major 3 times. First it was theater, then philosophy, then business. He barely maintained a C average, but every parent weekend, my parents drove 4 hours to visit him, took him and his girlfriend out to expensive dinners, and came home with stories about how much he was growing as a person. They never visited me. Not once in 4 years. The state university was 40 minutes from our house. "You're so independent," my mother said when I mentioned it. "We figured you didn't need us hovering over you." My college graduation was on a Saturday in May. Derek's fraternity formal was the same weekend, 3 hours away. My parents came to my ceremony. They sat somewhere in the middle section. I couldn't spot them in the crowd. I graduated summa cum laude, was recognized for academic achievement, received a special award for my senior capstone project. After the ceremony, we took exactly 4 photos. Then my parents checked their watches. "We need to get on the road," my father said. "We're taking Derek and his date to dinner before the formal." "Can't we at least go somewhere for lunch?" I asked. "Just for an hour?" "We really can't, honey," my mother said. "We made reservations. Derek's counting on us." They hugged me, said congratulations, and left. I went back to my dorm room. I ordered Chinese takeout. I ate it alone, wearing my cap and gown, staring at my diploma. Summa cum laude. Highest honors. 4 years of perfect grades and groundbreaking projects. And I celebrated alone. I started my first job 2 weeks later, a junior position at a tech startup, $42,000 a year. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I was proud of it. That Thanksgiving, I came home excited to share. I'd been promoted to team lead on a major project. At only 6 months in, I was managing 3 other developers. I waited for the right moment during dinner. Finally, there was a pause in conversation. I have some good news, I said. I've been promoted at work. I'm leading a project that— That's great, Maya, my father interrupted. But Derek has some news. He's been promoted to shift supervisor at his retail job. The table erupted. My mother actually stood up to hug Derek. My father raised his glass for a toast. To Derek, he said. We're so proud of you. Everyone drank. Everyone smiled at Derek. I sat there, my words hanging in the air, unfinished, unheard. I put down my fork. I smiled. I said, Congratulations, Derek. And I stopped trying to share my life with them. If no one was listening, what was the point of speaking? I learned to compress my entire existence into polite, brief responses. How's work? Good. How's your apartment? Fine. Seeing anyone? Not really. I learned that the less I said, the less it hurt when they didn't hear me. And they never asked for more. They never pushed. They never seemed curious about the life I was building, because they were too busy celebrating Derek. Ordinary Derek. Average Derek. Derek, who'd never won anything, never achieved anything remarkable, never built anything that mattered. But Derek, who needed them. Derek, who called them crying when things got hard. Derek, who made them feel necessary. I didn't need them. I was competent, capable, self-sufficient. So they forgot I existed. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Tell me in the comments. Because for years, I thought it was just me. I thought I was the problem. I wish I'd known then what I know now. Being easy to overlook doesn't make you less valuable. It just makes the people overlooking you less observant. But I wasn't ready to learn that lesson yet. I had years of silent sacrifice ahead of me first. My career took off in my mid-20s. After 5 years in corporate tech, I made the leap to freelance consulting. It was terrifying and exhilarating. No safety net, no guaranteed paycheck, just my skills and my reputation. I was good at what I did, really good. Within 2 years, I had more clients than I could handle. I specialized in user experience design, helping companies make their products intuitive and accessible. My rates climbed from $75 an hour to $150, then to $250. I lived modestly. A small apartment, a reliable car, simple clothes. I saved aggressively, invested carefully. I had goals: buying a house, building real financial security, maybe starting my own firm someday. But my family had other plans for my money. Derek's life became a series of expensive disasters. He dropped out of college in his final year after changing majors for the 4th time. My parents were left with $40,000 in student loan debt and nothing to show for it. The school wasn't right for him, my mother explained when she called to tell me. He needs to find his own path. His path led to a sales job that he quit after 3 months, then a real estate licensing course he never finished, then a gym membership so he could become a personal trainer, which lasted exactly 6 weeks. Each failure was met with unconditional support from my parents. He's still figuring things out. The economy is tough. His boss was terrible. He just needs the right opportunity. And then came the phone calls to me. The first one came on a Tuesday evening. I was working on a client proposal when my phone rang. Maya, honey. My mother's voice was strained. I hate to ask, but we're in a bit of a bind. Your father's hours got cut at work, and we're short on the electric bill this month. Could you possibly help us out? Just 200 or 300? You will pay you back as soon as things stabilize. I sent $300 that night. A month later, Derek's car broke down. He needs it for job interviews. The repair is $1,200. Could you possibly? I sent $1,200. 2 months after that. We're behind on the mortgage. Just this once, could you help? 3,000. We'll pay you back when Dad gets his year-end bonus. I sent $3,000. I wiped out 4 months of savings. The bonuses never came. The repayments never materialized. The emergencies never stopped. My father needed dental work. $2,000. Derek's rent was overdue. $800. My mother's car needed new tires. $600. Derek lost his job and needed help with groceries. $400 a month for 3 months. The requests came with promises. We'll pay you back next month. Derek will pay you back double when his business takes off. This is just temporary. But temporary became permanent. The promises became patterns. I started keeping track. I couldn't help it. I'm a detail person, and something about the constant requests made me need to see the numbers. I created a spreadsheet. Date, amount, stated reason, promised repayment date. After 3 years, the total was $47,000. After 6 years, it was $87,430. Over $87,000 of my own money, my own savings, my own future, sent to my family in an endless stream of emergencies. The worst part wasn't the money, it was the pattern that came with it. When I sent money, I suddenly became visible. My mother would call, warm and chatty. "You're such a blessing, Maya. We're so grateful. You have no idea how much this helps." For a day or two, I mattered. I was important. I was valued. Then the warmth would fade. Conversations would drift back to Derek's latest plans, his new girlfriend, his interesting idea for a business selling artisanal dog treats, or custom surfboards, or whatever scheme he'd latched onto that week. I'd fade back into invisibility until the next crisis, the next request. I never told them about my own success. When I landed my first $50,000 contract, I celebrated alone in my apartment with takeout and a bottle of wine I'd been saving. I didn't tell them because I'd learned what happened when I shared good news. Either they'd minimize it, "That's nice, honey, but be careful not to work too hard," or they'd immediately ask for money. "Oh, well, since you're doing so well, could you help with—" I couldn't bear either response anymore. The breaking point came when I was 31. I'd landed a contract with a major retail company to redesign their entire e-commerce platform. 6 months of work, $90,000. It was the biggest win of my career so far. The same week, my mother called crying. "We're drowning, Maya," she sobbed. "Your father's insurance lapsed, and he needs surgery on his shoulder. We're looking at $15,000 in medical bills. I don't know what to do." I sent $5,000 that night. It was everything in my emergency fund. 2 days later, I saw on Facebook that my parents had taken Derek out for his birthday to an expensive steakhouse downtown, with a cake, with presents. I stared at the photos. My mother was beaming, arms around Derek. My father was laughing at something Derek had said. The bill for that dinner had to be at least $200. $200, while they didn't know what to do about their medical bills. I closed Facebook and opened my spreadsheet. I looked at every line, every broken promise, every emergency that coincided with vacations or expensive outings or new purchases for Derek. $23,400 for emergency bills, many of which happened right before or after my parents took trips or bought new furniture. $18,900 for Derek's various opportunities and crucial expenses. $12,600 for car repairs and medical bills. $15,200 for rent and mortgage help. $17,330 for miscellaneous family emergencies that were never fully explained. I was being used, systematically, completely. And I'd let it happen because some part of me still believed that if I just helped enough, gave enough, sacrificed enough, They would finally see me. They would finally love me the way they loved Derek. That's when I started therapy. Dr. Patricia Chen's office was in a quiet building downtown. She was in her 50s, kind-eyed, direct in a way that felt respectful rather than harsh. Our third session, she asked me a question that changed everything. "Maya," she said gently, "why do you think you need to earn their love?" I opened my mouth to answer and found I couldn't, because I didn't have an answer, or I had too many answers, or the answer was too painful to speak out loud. "You've told me about your achievements," Dr. Chen continued. "Your career, your income, your success. You've told me about the money you've sent them. But you haven't told me about a single time they celebrated you, not your graduation, not your promotions, not your contracts. Why do you think that is?" Because I struggled for words. Because I don't need it. I'm self-sufficient. Derek needs more support, and I... "Do you really not need it?" she interrupted gently. "Or have you just learned to live without it because asking for it was too painful?" I started crying. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears that I couldn't stop. "They're using you," Dr. Chen said. It wasn't cruel. It was simply factual. And I think part of you knows that. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I didn't have an answer that day, or the next session, or the one after that. But the question stayed with me. It burrowed into my mind and wouldn't let go. What was I going to do about it? I kept sending money. I couldn't seem to stop. Every time my phone rang with their number, my stomach would clench, but I'd answer. I'd listen to the crisis. I'd transfer the funds. Because somewhere deep inside, I still hoped. I still believed that maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time they'd really see me. But they never did. And it took one more betrayal, one final devastating moment of invisibility, before I finally understood. I couldn't make them see me. I could only decide to see myself. The text came on a Wednesday afternoon while I was in a client meeting. "Derek's engagement party. Saturday at 7 p.m. Fancy restaurant downtown. Dress nice." It was sent to the family group chat. No personal message, no phone call. Just a generic announcement to 8 people, including Derek's best friend and Stephanie's sister. I was my brother's sister, and I found out about his engagement the same way his friend's girlfriend did. I stared at my phone, a familiar numbness settling over me. I should have been used to this by now. But somehow, it still stung. That same week, I was in final negotiations for the contract that would change my life. A Fortune 500 tech company wanted to overhaul their entire user experience infrastructure. They'd reviewed over 200 applications from consultants worldwide. They'd narrowed it to 3 finalists, and I was one of them. The contract was for 3 years, $2.3 million total. And it was everything I'd worked for. 15 years of experience, relationships, reputation, late nights, and constant improvement, all leading to this moment. The final meeting was scheduled for Saturday at 4 p.m. They wanted to meet in person, go over last details, and sign the contract. I texted the family group chat immediately. "I have something huge happening Saturday afternoon. Can we move the party to Sunday? I really want to be there, and I have something to celebrate too." My mother's response came within minutes. "The venue is booked. Can't your thing wait? This is Derek's night." I tried again. "This is really important. It's the biggest opportunity of my career. I can probably make it by 6:30 or 7, but..." My father replied, "Maya, you always have something going on with work. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event for your brother. Be a team player." A team player. I'd been a team player for 33 years. I'd been the reliable one, the flexible one, the one who could always adjust her schedule, the one who didn't matter enough to plan around. Derek never responded to the group chat. He didn't acknowledge my request. He didn't care. I put down my phone and made my choice. I'd go to the signing meeting. I'd make the party afterward if I could. Saturday arrived gray and cold, threatening rain. I dressed carefully for the meeting. Professional navy suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. I looked successful because I was successful. The meeting was in a glass tower downtown. I rode the elevator to the 42nd floor, my portfolio in hand, my heart beating steady and sure. The CEO was there, the CTO, the head of product development. 3 people who actually saw what I'd built, who valued what I could do. We went through the final details, the scope of work, the timeline, the payment structure. Then they slid the contract across the table. "We're honored to work with you," the CEO said. "You're a pioneer in this field, Ms. Foster. We're grateful you chose us." I signed my name, my hand completely steady. They shook my hand. Someone opened champagne. They toasted to partnership, to innovation, to the future. My phone buzzed constantly in my purse. I ignored it. When the meeting ended at 5:45, I checked my messages. The family group chat had exploded with photos. My mother setting the table at the restaurant. My father and Derek in matching ties. Stephanie's engagement ring from 3 different angles. Not one message asking where I was. Not one person wondering if my meeting had gone well. I drove across town to the restaurant, still in my suit, my hair still perfect from the business meeting. The contract sat in its leather folder on my passenger seat. $2.3 million. 3 years. The biggest achievement of my life. And I was rushing to make it to my brother's engagement party, where no one would ask me about it. I arrived at 6:30. The party was in a private room at an upscale Italian place. I could hear laughter from the hallway. When I walked in, my mother glanced up from her conversation. "Oh, you made it," she said. No hug, no smile. "We already ordered appetizers. You'll have to catch up." I sat down in the empty chair they'd left for me, squeezed between my father and a cousin I barely knew. The table was full, 18 people celebrating Derek and Stephanie. I tried to feel happy for them. Derek was my brother. I loved him, even if he didn't seem to love me back. Stephanie seemed nice, though I barely knew her. But all I could feel was the weight of the contract in my bag and the complete certainty that no one at this table would care. Dinner progressed. People toasted the couple. They told stories about how Derek and Stephanie met, about their relationship, about their future. I picked at my chicken piccata and waited. 3 times I tried to share my news. The first time, there was a lull in conversation. I took a breath. "I have some news too." My mother interrupted immediately. "Oh, before I forget, Stephanie, tell everyone about the wedding venue you're looking at." The table's attention swiveled to Stephanie. My words died in my throat. The second time, dessert had arrived. I tried again. "Something really exciting happened to me today." My cousin started talking over me, launching into a story about her own engagement. No one noticed I'd been speaking. The third time, I was more direct. I waited for a clear pause. "I need to share something. Today, I signed." My father held up his hand. "Hold that thought, Maya. Derek and Stephanie want to show us the wedding venue photos." Derek pulled out his phone. Everyone crowded around. The venue was gorgeous, a converted barn with string lights and gardens. It would cost at least $60,000. My parents were already promising to help pay for it. The same parents who still owed me tens of thousands from their emergencies. I sat back in my chair and felt something inside me go completely cold. Then Stephanie turned to me, smiling brightly. "You'll be a bridesmaid, right?" "I need to know for dress ordering." "It's $300 for the dress, plus you'll need to cover your own hair and makeup appointment. Probably $500 total." She tilted her head. "That's fine for you, right? Derek says you're doing well." Everyone was looking at me, waiting for my answer. Derek was scrolling through his phone, not even watching this interaction. My father was already moving on to the next topic of conversation. My mother was laughing at something Stephanie's sister said. I looked around the table, at these people who were my family, who I'd supported financially for 6 years, who I'd helped through every crisis, every emergency, every request. And I understood with perfect crystalline clarity, I was not a daughter to them. I was not a sister. I was a resource, an ATM, and a supporting character in Derek's story. I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor, but the noise was lost in the general conversation. "Excuse me," I said quietly. No one acknowledged me. No one asked where I was going. I walked out of the restaurant, through the private dining room, through the main restaurant where other families were celebrating, actually celebrating each other, out into the cold February evening. I got in my car and sat in the parking lot. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. Instead, I felt something else, something clear and cold and final. I opened my banking app. I pulled up the spreadsheet I'd been keeping for 6 years. Every payment, every broken promise, every emergency that wasn't really an emergency. $87,430. $87,430. I took screenshots of the spreadsheet, of text messages from my mother promising repayment, of my father's emails thanking me for being so generous, of Derek's casual requests for thousands of dollars followed by photos of him buying expensive sneakers or going on weekend trips. I saved everything to a folder on my phone. Then I opened my email and looked at the contract I'd signed that afternoon. The biggest achievement of my career. The moment I became one of the most sought-after consultants in my field. I sat in my car outside a restaurant where my family was celebrating my brother without noticing I'd left. And I made a decision. I was done being invisible. I was done being used. I was done hoping they would see me. It was time to make them see me, whether they wanted to or not. I woke up Sunday morning with unusual clarity. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel conflicted. I felt determined. I made coffee and opened my laptop. I spent the entire day organizing everything I'd been avoiding for 6 years. First, the financial records. I pulled up every bank statement, every Venmo transfer, every check I'd written. I created a new spreadsheet, cleaner, more detailed, undeniable. Column 1, date. Column 2, amount. Column 3, stated reason. Column 4, promised repayment date. Column 5, actual repayment. That last column was nothing but zeros. Every single line. 0, 0, 0. I categorized the payments. Emergency bills, $23,400. Except when I cross-referenced dates, many of these emergencies happened right before or after my parents posted vacation photos on Facebook, or bought new furniture, or renovated their kitchen. Derek's expenses, $18,900, rent payments, car repairs, business opportunities that never materialized, security deposits for apartments he moved out of within months, car repairs and medical bills, $12,600. Some of these were legitimate. Some coincided with expensive purchases I saw on social media. Rent and mortgage help, $15,200. For a house my parents had owned for 25 years. A house that should have been almost paid off by now. Miscellaneous family emergencies, $17,330. These were the vaguest requests. We need help. It's an emergency. Can you send $800? No explanation, no follow-up. I added it all up again, $87,430. I sat back and stared at the number. That was a down payment on a house. That was a year of living expenses. That was my future. siphoned away to people who couldn't even remember to ask how my day was. Next, I went through my text messages. I screenshotted conversations with my mother. "We're so grateful. We'll pay you back next month when Dad gets his bonus." 4 years ago. Never mentioned again. "You're such a blessing to this family. We don't know what we'd do without you." Followed 2 days later by another request. "This is the last time, I promise. We'll get back on our feet." Sent 6 times over 3 years. Derek's messages were worse. "Hey sis, can you spot me for rent? $1,200. I'll pay you back double when my business takes off. I promise." He'd never mentioned it again. Instead, he'd started 3 different businesses: an online t-shirt store, a cryptocurrency investment scheme, a plan to flip furniture. All had failed within months. Then I found the emails. Dozens of them. My parents declining to attend my events. "Can't make your awards dinner. We have plans with Derek." "Won't be able to visit for your housewarming. Derek needs help moving." "We can't come to your work celebration. It's Derek's friend's birthday." But detailed emails about visiting Derek, about taking him and his girlfriends to expensive dinners, about funding his hobbies and dreams and half-formed ideas. The most painful discovery came when I was looking through my photos. 6 months ago, my mother had sent me a screenshot to show me something Derek had posted. But she'd captured too much of her screen. At the top, I could see her recent group chats. One was called The Core Fam. I'd never seen that chat. I wasn't in it. I went back through my messages with my mother and found the full screenshot she'd sent. I zoomed in on the chat list. The Core Fam had 5 members. I could see the tiny profile pictures: my mother, my father, Derek, Stephanie, and even Derek's best friend, Tyler. I was their daughter, Derek's sister. And I wasn't in the Core Fam. I stared at that screenshot for a long time. It shouldn't have hurt. I knew they didn't value me. I knew I was peripheral to their lives. But seeing it in black and white, seeing myself explicitly excluded from the family's inner circle, felt like a punch to the chest. I saved that screenshot too. By Sunday evening, I had everything organized, printed and digital: dates, amounts, promises, proof. Monday morning, I called Dr. Chen's office and asked for an emergency session. Her assistant fit me in for Tuesday afternoon. Dr. Chen listened as I explained what had happened at the engagement party. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. When I finished, she asked one question: "What do you need to happen for you to feel at peace with this?" I thought about it carefully. "I don't want revenge," I said slowly. "I don't want to hurt them or humiliate them just for the sake of it. But I need them to see me, really see me. I need them to understand what they've done. I need acknowledgement." "And you think a public confrontation is the way to get that?" Dr. Chen asked. Not judgmentally, just curiously. "I've tried private conversations," I said. "I've tried hints. I've tried being direct. They don't hear me. They never hear me. If I do this privately, they'll dismiss it. They'll gaslight me. They'll make me feel like I'm being dramatic or ungrateful." I met her eyes. "I need witnesses. I need people who will make it impossible for them to rewrite the narrative immediately." Dr. Chen nodded. "What happens after? What's your goal for the relationship?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe someday we can have a real relationship. Maybe not. But I can't keep being invisible. I can't keep funding their lives while they ignore mine. I need them to face what they've done." "That's fair," Dr. Chen said. "That's actually very healthy, Maya. You're setting a boundary. A hard one, but a necessary one." I told her about Derek's engagement brunch, scheduled for the next Sunday. 60 people, extended family, friends, Derek's boss, all at my parents' country club. "That's your moment," I said. "That's when I'm going to tell them everything." "Are you prepared for the consequences?" Dr. Chen asked. For them to be angry? For the relationship to be damaged? Maybe permanently? The relationship is already damaged, I said. It's been damaged my whole life. I'm just making it visible. I left her office and drove straight to FedEx. I printed everything: the spreadsheet, the screenshots, a timeline of my professional achievements, awards, contracts, publications, everything they'd never acknowledged. I put it all in a folder: professional, organized, undeniable. Then I called James. James Chen had been my best friend since college. We'd met in a computer science class and bonded over terrible campus coffee and late-night study sessions. He was one of the few people who truly saw me. I need your help, I told him. And I need you to tell me if I'm being cruel. Come over, he said immediately. I went to his apartment that evening. He was grading papers at his kitchen table. He taught high school computer science now, loved his students, was exactly the kind of teacher I wished I'd had. I showed him everything: the spreadsheet, the messages, the screenshots. He read it all in silence. When he looked up, his eyes were furious. Maya, he said quietly, this is abuse. Financial abuse. They've been exploiting you for years. I let them, I said. That doesn't make it okay. He pushed the papers back toward me. What are you going to do? I told him about the engagement brunch, about my plan to speak publicly, about needing witnesses. I need you there, I said. I need you to tell me if I'm being vindictive, if I'm going too far. I only want to tell the truth. Nothing more. James was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'll be there. But Maya, I don't think you're capable of being vindictive. I've watched you make excuses for these people for a decade. If anything, I'm worried you'll be too kind. We talked for 3 more hours. We role-played the confrontation. He played my parents, throwing out every defensive response, every manipulation tactic, every deflection I might face. You're being dramatic. This isn't the time or place. How dare you embarrass us like this? We've always been proud of you. We practiced until I could respond to each one calmly, factually, without raising my voice. What do you want from them? James asked. Afterward, I mean. Do you want a relationship? I want them to see me, I said. I want them to understand that I'm a person, not a resource. I want Derek to know that while they were celebrating his mediocrity, I was building something real. I paused. I don't want the money back. That would just give them another way to make this about them. I want my dignity back. James nodded. Then take it. Wednesday, I RSVP'd to the engagement brunch. My mother called that night, surprised. Oh, I'm so glad you're coming, she said. We didn't hear from you after Saturday's dinner. You left so quickly. I did, I said neutrally. Everything okay? We'll talk on Sunday, I said. Okay, honey. Wear something nice. It's at the country club. I know, I said. I'll be there. I spent the rest of the week preparing, not rehearsing. I didn't want to sound scripted, but organizing my thoughts, grounding myself in the facts. This wasn't about revenge. This wasn't about punishment. This was about truth, about visibility, about finally, after 33 years, refusing to be overlooked. Saturday night, James came over. We ordered pizza and watched a movie, but neither of us was really paying attention. Are you scared? He asked during a quiet moment. Terrified, I admitted. But more than that, I'm ready. I've been ready my whole life. I just didn't know it. Sunday morning, I woke up before dawn. I showered. I chose my outfit carefully: an elegant navy dress, simple jewelry, professional but appropriate. I looked successful because I was successful. I looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. The woman staring back at me wasn't invisible anymore. She was done apologizing for taking up space. She was done shrinking herself to make others comfortable. She was done being used. I picked up the folder of evidence. I picked up my phone. And I drove to the country club to change my life forever. James arrived at my apartment Tuesday evening, 3 days before the engagement brunch. I'd spent the day refining my documentation, organizing my thoughts, trying to quiet the voice in my head that kept whispering that I was being cruel, dramatic, vindictive. When I opened the door, James took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "You're doing the right thing," he said before I could speak. I led him to my dining table, which was covered in printed documents, the spreadsheet, the screenshots, the timeline of my achievements. Everything laid out like evidence in a trial, because that's what this was. I was putting my family on trial, and I needed to make sure my case was airtight. "I need you to be honest with me," I said as we sat down. "I need you to tell me if this is wrong, if I'm doing this for the wrong reasons." James picked up the financial spreadsheet. His eyes widened as he scanned the numbers. "Jesus, Maya," he breathed. "I knew you'd help them, but—" He looked up at me. $87,000? Over 6 years? "Every dollar documented," I said. "Every promise broken." He read the detailed categories. His jaw tightened as he went through the text message screenshots, the emails where my parents declined my events but funded Derek's whims. When he reached the screenshot showing the core fam group chat, he set the papers down and looked at me with something like grief in his eyes. "This is abuse," he said quietly. "Maya, this is financial exploitation. Yeah, they've been systematically using you while treating you like you don't matter." "I let them," I said. "I kept sending money. I kept answering the phone." No," James interrupted firmly. "Children learn to accept what their parents normalize. You've been trained since you were 7 years old to believe that your worth is measured by your usefulness. That's not your fault. That's theirs." I felt my throat tighten. "I just need to know, am I doing this for the right reasons? Am I trying to hurt them? Or am I trying to heal myself?" James was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Tell me what you want to happen. After the brunch. What's your ideal outcome?" I thought carefully. "I want them to see me. Actually see me. Not as a bank account or a supporting character, but as a real person with achievements and value. And I want them to understand what they've done. I want Derek to know that while they were celebrating every small thing he did, I was building something extraordinary. And I paused. "I want to stop feeling like I have to earn love that should have been freely given." "Do you want the money back?" "No," I said immediately. "If I ask for the money back, it becomes about the money. It gives them a way to reframe this as me being petty or greedy. This isn't about the money. It's about them using me and never seeing me." James nodded slowly. "What about a relationship with them? After this? Do you want one?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe someday. But not like this. Not with me invisible and them indifferent. If we're going to have a relationship, it has to be real. It has to be based on mutual respect. And right now, they don't respect me at all." "Okay," James said. "So what are the risks of doing this publicly?" "They'll be angry," I said. "They'll feel humiliated. They might never forgive me." "Can you live with that?" I met his eyes. "Yes, because I can't live with this anymore. I've tried private conversations. I've tried hints. I've tried being patient and understanding. Nothing works. They don't hear me unless there are consequences." James picked up the papers again, reading through my timeline of achievements. "A $2.3 million contract," he said, shaking his head. "And they didn't even ask about it." "They don't know about it," I said. "Nobody in my family knows. Because every time I try to share something good, they either minimize it or ask for money." "You're not being vindictive," James said after a long silence. "You're not even being cruel. You're telling the truth. The truth might hurt them, but that doesn't make it wrong to tell it. We spent the next 2 hours preparing. James played devil's advocate, throwing out every possible response my family might have. You're being dramatic. Arrow. I have documentation. These are facts, not feelings. This isn't the time or place. You've had 33 years to make time and place for me. I'm taking this moment. How could you embarrass us like this? How could you ignore me for my entire life? We've always been proud of you. Being proud of someone means acknowledging their achievements. When did you last ask about my work? My life? Me? We role-played until I could respond to anything without my voice shaking, without anger, just calm statements of fact. What about Derek? James asked. What if he gets defensive? Then I'll remind him that I love him, but love doesn't mean enabling. Mom and Dad have done him a disservice by never holding him accountable. I'm not going to keep participating in that. And if they ask for the money back? I'll tell them I'm not asking for repayment. I'm asking for acknowledgement. I'm asking them to see what they've done and to understand why it can't continue. James sat back, studying me. You know, this might not change anything, right? They might double down. They might refuse to take responsibility. I know, I said. But I'll have said it. I'll have made it impossible for them to claim they didn't know, and I'll have witnesses who heard the truth. Whatever they do after that is their choice. What are you going to do after? Assuming the worst? They react badly? Yes, they refuse to apologize. They cut you off. I'm going no contact for at least 6 months, I said. I decided this in therapy with Dr. Chen. No phone calls, no texts, no financial help. Complete boundary. I need space to heal without their voices in my head telling me I'm being unreasonable. Can you stick to that? James asked gently. You have a pattern of giving in when your mom cries, or your dad guilts you. That's why I need you, I said. I need someone who will help me hold the boundary, who will remind me why I said it when I start to waver. James reached across the table and took my hand. I'm here. For all of it. I'll sit beside you at the brunch. I'll be your witness. And I'll help you hold your boundaries after for as long as you need. I felt tears prick my eyes. Why? I asked. Why do you care so much? Because you're my friend, James said simply. Because I've watched these people diminish you for a decade, and it's been killing me. Because you deserve better. Because someone needs to be in your corner, and I'm honored that you trust me to be that person. We talked until midnight. We ordered takeout. We went over every possible scenario, every potential outcome. Finally, James asked, Are you sure you're ready for this? Really sure? I looked at the pile of evidence on my table, the documentation of years of invisibility, the proof that I'd been used and overlooked and dismissed. I've been ready my whole life, I said. I just didn't know it until now. James smiled. Then let's do this. Saturday night, the night before the brunch, James came over again. We didn't talk about strategy or planning, and we just existed together. We watched a movie neither of us paid attention to. We ate popcorn. We sat in comfortable silence. At 10 p.m., as he was leaving, James turned to me at the door. You're one of the bravest people I know, he said. Not because you're doing this tomorrow, but because you survived 33 years of being made invisible, and you still became extraordinary. That takes a strength most people never find. After he left, I stood in my quiet apartment, feeling that strength he'd named. I wasn't doing this to punish anyone. I wasn't doing this to get revenge. I was doing this because I finally valued myself enough to demand to be valued by others. And if they couldn't do that, I would walk away. For the first time in my life, I was choosing myself, and it felt like coming home. The country club was beautiful in the late morning sun. The engagement brunch was set up on the garden terrace, overlooking manicured lawns and flower beds just beginning to bloom. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, 60 people milling around in their Sunday best. I arrived at 11 a.m. with James, exactly 30 minutes after the official start time. Late enough that everyone would be there, early enough that the formal program hadn't begun. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, an elegant emerald dress that made me look successful without being flashy. Simple jewelry, hair and makeup perfect. I wanted to look like myself, my real self, the successful woman my family had never bothered to know. James walked beside me in a crisp button-down shirt and slacks. He carried nothing, but I knew he was carrying everything. His support, his strength. His promise to intervene if I went too far. My mother spotted us as we entered the terrace. She waved but didn't come over. She was busy arranging flowers with Stephanie's mother. My father was at the bar, laughing with Derek's boss. Derek was holding court with a group of friends, gesturing animatedly as he told some story. He didn't notice me at all. "You okay?" James murmured. "Yes," I said. And I was. Calmer than I'd felt in years. We mingled politely. I congratulated Derek and Stephanie, who were gracious and warm. Stephanie complimented my dress. Derek gave me a distracted hug. "Glad you made it, sis," he said, already turning back to his friends. I made small talk with relatives I hadn't seen in years. My Aunt Patricia, my father's sister, asked what I was doing for work. "I'm a UX consultant," I said. "I work with tech companies on their user experience design." "That sounds fascinating," she said. "Tell me more." It was the first time anyone in my extended family had asked. I gave a brief, humble answer, not elaborating. Not yet. I was waiting. The formal toasts began at noon. People gathered around the bride and groom, champagne glasses in hand. My father went first. He stood at the head of the table, glass raised, eyes shining with emotion. "Derek," he said, his voice thick, "I'm so proud of the man you've become. Watching you find love with Stephanie has been one of the great joys of my life. You've grown so much, overcome so much. Your mother and I are honored to call you our son." The crowd applauded. My father was crying, actual tears. I'd never seen him cry about me. My mother went next. She talked about Derek's journey, his kindness, his bright future. She talked about what a blessing he was, how lucky they were to have him. She mentioned my aunt and uncle, thanking them for coming. She mentioned Derek's best friend Tyler, calling him practically family. She didn't mention me. Several friends gave toasts. Derek's boss, Stephanie's sister. Tyler with a funny story about college that had everyone laughing. Then my father, wiping his eyes, said, "Anyone else want to say a few words?" This was it. I stood. The folder was in my hands, though I hadn't taken it out yet. James stood beside me, a quiet show of support. The crowd quieted. People turned to look at me. Derek seemed surprised. He clearly hadn't expected his sister to speak. I took a breath. My voice, when I spoke, was calm, clear, measured. "I'd like to say something," I said. "But it's not exactly a traditional toast. Derek, Mom, Dad, I need to talk about our family, and I think it's important that I do it here, with witnesses, because private conversations haven't worked." The atmosphere shifted immediately. The celebration energy drained away, replaced by uncertainty. My mother's smile froze on her face. My father's expression hardened. Derek looked confused and irritated. Several people glanced at each other uncomfortably. I continued. "I want to start with my professional life, which is something you know almost nothing about. 6 months ago, I signed a $2.3 million consulting contract with a Fortune 500 company. It was the biggest achievement of my career. I tried to tell you about it at Derek's engagement dinner last week. I was interrupted and ignored. Hi, that's happened my entire life. I opened my folder and pulled out the timeline of my career achievements. I brought documentation because I knew you'd say I'm exaggerating. This is a timeline of my career. Full scholarship to college, summa cum laude graduation, 6 professional awards, 12 major contracts, featured in 3 industry publications. I held it up so people could see. I've tried to share these moments with you. You've never asked about my work, attended any of my events, or acknowledged anything I've achieved. The crowd was absolutely silent. Some guests looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats. Some leaned forward, listening intently. My Aunt Patricia was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Dawning realization, maybe, or recognition. I pulled out the financial spreadsheet. But you have asked me for money, constantly, for 6 years. I held up the pages. This is every payment I've made to this family. $87,430, emergency bills, Derek's rent, car repairs, medical expenses, loans that were never repaid despite dozens of promises. My mother stood abruptly, her face flushing red. Maya, this is not the time or place. My voice didn't rise, but it firmed. Mom, sit down. You've had 32 years to make time and place for me. I'm taking this moment. My mother sat. I'd never spoken to her like that. Never. The shock on her face was almost worth everything. I turned to Derek. Derek, I love you. You're my brother. But I need you to hear this. While Mom and Dad were celebrating every C you got, every job you quit, every failed business idea, I was building a career that now earns me more than our parents made combined in their best year. And they never noticed because they were too busy funding your life and asking me to help pay for it. Derek's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I pulled out specific examples from my folder. 3 years ago, I won a Regional Innovation Award. I called to tell you, Dad. You said, "That's nice," and then talked for 40 minutes about Derek making assistant manager at a retail store. 2 years ago, I was featured in Tech Innovator magazine. I sent you the article, Mom. You texted back, "Looks good," and then asked if I could send $2,000 for Derek's car insurance because he'd lost his job again. Stephanie was staring at Derek with a strange expression. Several guests were looking at their phones, clearly uncomfortable with the confrontation but unable to look away. My uncle, my father's brother, was watching my father with what looked like disappointment. I pressed on, my voice still calm, still factual. Last week, I attended Derek's engagement party. I tried 3 times to share that I'd signed the biggest contract of my life that afternoon. I was interrupted and dismissed each time. Then Stephanie asked me to be a bridesmaid and pay $500 for the privilege. I looked at Derek. You didn't even look at me. You've never asked about my life. None of you have. My father finally spoke, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Maya, we've always been proud of you. You're successful, independent. Derek needed more help. I cut him off, gently, firmly. Dad, Derek is 30 years old. I'm 33. At what point does needing more help become enabling? At what point does my success stop being a reason to ignore me? I paused, making sure everyone could hear. You're proud of me because I don't need attention? That's not pride. That's convenience. I address the crowd now, not just my family. I'm not saying this for sympathy. I'm saying this because I need witnesses. I've tried private conversations. I've tried being understanding, being patient, being the good daughter who doesn't cause problems. It didn't work. So I'm saying it here. I matter. My life matters. My achievements matter. And I will not continue to be invisible while funding the visibility of others. The terrace was so quiet I could hear birds singing in the garden. Somewhere distant, a lawnmower hummed. I closed my folder. Derek, And I wish you and Stephanie every happiness. I mean that sincerely. But I won't be a bridesmaid. I won't be sending money anymore. I won't be available for family emergencies that aren't really emergencies. I looked at my parents. I love you, but I need you to understand what you've done. Maybe someday you will. I hope so. I set the folder on the gift table and turned to leave. James stood and walked beside me. Behind us, the silence shattered. Voices erupted. Questions, arguments. My mother's voice rising in pitch. Maya, wait! Maya! I didn't wait. We walked through the country club, through the lobby, out to the parking lot. The spring air was cool on my flushed face. I got in my car. James got in the passenger seat. You okay? He asked quietly. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Yes, I said. And I meant it. I didn't cry. I thought I might. But I didn't. I felt lighter. Like I'd been carrying a weight for 33 years and had finally set it down. Behind us, through the country club windows, I could see people gesturing, talking, some looking toward the parking lot. The engagement brunch had become something else entirely, a reckoning. I started the car and drove away, leaving them to face the truth I'd finally spoken. For the first time in my life, I'd made myself impossible to ignore, and it felt like freedom. My phone started ringing before we'd even left the country club parking lot. I silenced it and kept driving. By the time James and I got back to my apartment, I had 37 missed calls and over 100 text messages. I didn't read them. Not yet. I needed a moment to breathe. Needed to sit in the quiet of my own space and process what I'd just done. James made tea. We sat on my couch in silence for 20 minutes, just existing in the aftermath. Finally, I picked up my phone. The messages were exactly what I'd expected. My mother, sent at 12:14 p.m. How could you embarrass us like that? In front of everyone, you've ruined Derek's engagement. My father, 12:16 p.m. We need to talk. This is unacceptable behavior. Come back now. Derek, 12:22 p.m. Thanks for making my engagement about you. Real classy, Maya. Then, a few hours later, my mother again, 3:47 p.m. Some of what you said was unfair, but maybe we should talk. I saved all the messages. I didn't respond to any of them. Notice, James said, reading over my shoulder. Not one actual apology. Not one acknowledgement of the specific things you said. He was right. Every message was about how I'd hurt them, embarrassed them, ruined Derek's day. Not one addressed the $87,000, the years of dismissal, the lifetime of invisibility. Over the next few days, the messages continued. Most were variations on the same themes: anger, deflection, half-hearted attempts at reconciliation that always came with conditions. But 3 days after the brunch, I got a call from Aunt Patricia. I answered. Patricia had always been kind, even if distant. Maya, she said. Her voice was quiet, serious. I owe you an apology. I sat down, surprised. I've watched your parents treat you this way for years, Patricia continued. I've watched them dismiss you, use you, ignore your achievements. And I said nothing. I told myself it wasn't my business, why that I shouldn't interfere in how they raised their children. I was wrong. My throat tightened. Aunt Patricia, what you did took incredible courage, she said, and it shouldn't have been necessary. You shouldn't have had to publicly call out your own family just to be seen. But I'm glad you did it. They needed to hear it. We all needed to hear it. We talked for an hour. Patricia told me things I'd never known, that favoritism and dismissiveness were patterns my father had learned from his own parents, that he'd been the overlooked child in his family. That didn't excuse his behavior. Patricia was clear about that, but it helped me understand it. Would you like me to keep you updated on the family? Patricia asked. No pressure, No expectations, just information if you want it. Yes, I said. Please. And Maya, I'm proud of you. And your achievements are extraordinary, and you should be celebrated. I'm sorry I didn't say that sooner. After we hung up, I cried. Not from pain, but from the relief of finally being acknowledged by someone who mattered. According to Patricia, the engagement brunch had dissolved completely within 30 minutes of my departure. Extended family members had confronted my parents with questions. Is this true? Did you really not know about her career? You took $87,000 from her? Derek and Stephanie had left early, arguing in the parking lot. Stephanie, Patricia said, had been horrified to learn that Derek's family had been financially supporting him so extensively, and that his sister had been funding parts of his life. Stephanie is asking a lot of hard questions, Patricia told me in our second conversation. About Derek's work history, his financial dependence, why he hasn't been more independent. The power shift became evident in week 2. My mother left a voicemail. We need your help. The country club charged us for the brunch damages and extra fees because we left early. It's $1,200. We don't have it right now. I deleted the voicemail without finishing it. 2 days later, Derek texted. My car needs a transmission repair. $2,500. I know things are weird right now, but this is an emergency. I didn't respond. Then came the message that showed they were beginning to understand. My father left a voicemail, his voice tired and uncertain. Maya, your mother and I have been talking. We didn't realize how we'd been treating you. We'd like to sit down and talk. Just the 3 of us. Not about money, about everything else. When you're ready. It wasn't an apology. Not yet. But it was the first acknowledgement that didn't include a request or deflection. I still didn't respond. But I saved the message. Through Aunt Patricia, I learned that Derek's relationship with Stephanie was unraveling. Stephanie had suggested postponing the wedding until Derek had stable employment and some savings. Derek was furious, feeling betrayed by everyone. He's blaming you, Patricia said gently. Says you ruined his life. Derek's path is his own, I said. And I meant it. I felt sad for him, but not responsible. He was 30 years old. It was time for him to face reality. My parents were facing their own consequences. Friends at the country club had been asking questions. Extended family members were distant or openly critical. See, Patricia told me that my mother's book club had spent an entire meeting discussing parental favoritism after one member, who'd been at the brunch, brought it up. The invisible structure of their family mythology had collapsed publicly. Derek as the golden child. Maya as the self-sufficient one who didn't need attention. Now everyone knew the truth. But the real power shift was internal. I was sleeping through the night for the first time in years. My work was sharper, more creative. I'd started dating Michael, the colleague I'd been interested in but never pursued because I'd been too emotionally exhausted by my family. Michael was patient, genuinely curious about my work, interested in my thoughts and opinions. When I told him about my family, he listened without judgment. You deserved better, he said simply. I'm glad you're giving yourself better now. I was using the money I would have sent home to invest in my own life. I booked a weekend trip with James to a tech conference I'd always wanted to attend. I bought new furniture for my apartment. I donated to a scholarship fund for women in tech. Every dollar I spent on myself felt like an act of rebellion and an act of healing. 6 weeks after the confrontation, I had a therapy session with Dr. Chen. Do you feel guilty? She asked. I considered carefully. Sometimes. There are moments when I wonder if I was too harsh, if I should have handled it differently. But mostly, I paused, finding the right words. Mostly, I feel sad. Sad for the relationship we could have had if they'd been able to see me. But I don't feel responsible for fixing it anymore. That's new. Dr. Chen smiled. That's growth, Maya. Real, substantial growth. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, I admitted, for the guilt to overwhelm me, for the old patterns to pull me back. But it hasn't happened. Because you've finally valued yourself enough to maintain your boundaries, Dr. Chen said. You're not waiting for their permission to exist anymore. You're just existing, living your life, being yourself. She was right. For 33 years, I'd been trying to earn love that should have been freely given. Now I was giving it to myself, and that, it turned out, was enough. 6 months passed. I maintained no contact with my parents and Derek, though I exchanged occasional emails with Aunt Patricia. She sent neutral updates. Derek had finally gotten a full-time job. My parents were in counseling. Stephanie had broken off the engagement. I felt sad about all of it, but not guilty. Their paths were their own. My path led somewhere beautiful. The $2.3 million contract opened doors I'd never imagined. I landed 2 more major clients. My income tripled. But more than that, I felt creatively alive in a way I never had before. Without the constant drain of my family's needs and dismissals, I had energy for my own dreams. I was invited to speak at a tech conference about user experience design. The old Maya would have declined. Too visible, too vulnerable to attention. The new Maya said yes. I gave the presentation to 400 people. I talked about accessibility, about designing for humans, about the responsibility we have as creators to make technology serve everyone. I received a standing ovation. James was in the front row, beaming with pride. Michael was there too, recording the whole thing on his phone even though I'd told him not to. No family members attended. But I didn't need them there. I was proud of myself. And that was enough. My relationship with Michael deepened. He was different from anyone I'd dated before. Stable, consistent, genuinely interested in building a life together. One evening, about 4 months into our relationship, I told him the full story of my family. Everything. The favoritism, the money, the confrontation at the brunch. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You deserved better. You deserved parents who celebrated you, a brother who valued you. I'm glad you're giving yourself better now." "Are you worried?" I asked. "About my family? About the drama?" "I'm not dating your family," he said simply. "I'm dating you. And you're incredible," I cried, happy tears this time. James and I took the trip we'd been planning, 2 weeks in Japan. It was something I'd wanted to do for years but never felt I could spend the money on. We explored Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka. We ate incredible food. We visited temples and gardens. We talked about everything and nothing. One evening, sitting in a small restaurant in Kyoto, James raised his sake cup. "To Maya," he said, "who finally chose herself." "To friends who make that possible," I replied, clinking my cup against his. 8 months after the confrontation, I received a letter in the mail. Not a text, not an email. A handwritten letter, 6 pages long, from my mother. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity won. My mother wrote about her own childhood, about being the overlooked middle daughter, always eclipsed by her older sister and younger brother, about unconsciously recreating that pattern with her own children. She wrote about realizing, after the brunch, how little she actually knew about my life, about asking Patricia what I did for a living and being shocked when Patricia explained the scope of my work, my reputation in my field. She wrote about shame, deep, profound shame. "I'm not asking you to forgive me or to come back," she wrote in careful, precise handwriting. "I'm telling you that you were right about everything. I failed you as a mother. I made you invisible when you deserved to be celebrated. I used you when I should have been supporting you. You deserve to be seen, to be loved unconditionally, to be proud of. I failed you, and I'm deeply ashamed. It was the first real apology I'd ever received from her. Yeah, I sat with the letter for 2 weeks. I read it multiple times. I discussed it with Dr. Chen and James. Then I wrote back a shorter letter. Thank you for seeing me now. I'm not ready for a full relationship yet. Maybe someday. For now, I need to focus on my own healing. I hope you understand. My mother wrote back within days. I do understand. I'll be here when and if you're ready. I love you. I'm sorry I didn't show you that before. Derek never apologized. According to Patricia, he'd moved back in with our parents, working part-time and still blaming me for ruining his life. The engagement with Stephanie had ended 6 months after the brunch. She couldn't reconcile with his lack of accountability or ambition. Derek's story made me sad, but I didn't feel responsible for it. He'd had every advantage: loving parents, financial support, endless second chances. What he did with that was his choice. I couldn't save him from himself. I couldn't make him grow up. I could only live my own life. 1 year after the confrontation, I was sitting in a coffee shop, working on my laptop, when I overheard a conversation at the next table. 2 young women, mid-20s. One was crying quietly. They only call when they need money, she said. I feel invisible except when I'm useful, like I don't matter unless I can do something for them. I hesitated. It wasn't my business. I should stay out of it. But I remembered being that woman. I remembered feeling exactly that way. I turned slightly. I'm sorry to overhear, I said gently, but may I share something with you? The crying woman looked up, surprised. Okay. I told her my story. Not all the details. But the core truth. I was invisible until I made myself seen. I was used until I established boundaries. I was undervalued until I valued myself. How did you find the courage? She asked, tears still on her face. I thought about it carefully. I realized that being scared of losing them was keeping me from having myself, and I decided I was worth more than that. I met her eyes. You are too. She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. Thank you. I gave her my business card. If you ever want to talk, reach out. Seriously. As I walked home that evening, the city lights beginning to glow in the dusk, I thought about the life I'd built. It wasn't perfect. I still had hard days. I still sometimes wondered if I'd been too harsh with my family, if I should have tried harder to make them understand privately. But those moments were rare now. Mostly, I felt peace. I pulled out my phone and opened my photos. There was a picture James had taken of me at the tech conference, mid-presentation, gesturing toward the screen, confident and radiant. I set it as my wallpaper, replacing the old family photo that had been there for years, the one where I stood slightly apart, slightly blurred, barely visible in the background. In this new photo, I was centered, clear, undeniably present. I smiled and kept walking, into the evening, into my life, the life I'd built myself, the life where I was finally, beautifully seen, not by them, by me. And that, I'd learned, was more than enough. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever sacrificed yourself trying to earn love that should have been freely given, I want you to know something. Your worth is not determined by who failed to recognize it. True family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who sees your value, celebrates your achievements, and supports your growth. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stop trying to earn the love of people who aren't capable of giving it. Instead, build a life with people who already see you. You cannot change people who don't want to change. But you can change your own boundaries, your own priorities, your own story. Your achievements don't need validation from those who refuse to witness them. And sometimes, The most powerful thing you can say is not, please see me. It's, I see myself. And that's enough. That's always been enough.